My name's Ottar Surtrson. Been in the SEA for about 25 years, give or take, months here and there. Um, and this class, I am teaching about how to work with the visually impaired at events and newcomers specifically, but any visually impaired at the events. I'm going to post theoretically anyway, I'm going to post a link in the chat for a handout. If it does not work, then we will make sure to get the handout posted when this gets posted to YouTube. All right, should have sent. Um, so there's going to be a couple things we're going to go over for this class. First of all, just some,
I've got it. Hey, Otter, I've
yeah,
got your link here. Would you like me to share that on the Zoom here,
yes.
or do you want to just lecture with your cute face?
No, no. Actually, we're going to put it in the comments anyway, so why don't we just lecture with my cute face?
Okay, we're gonna just record
Because
and lecture your cute face and have the Google Docs off on the side.
yeah, if you all want to look at the Google Doc, then feel free. I'm not going to go through every word of that because it's a lot of information, but it's a lot of
Okay.
really good information. So please, if you want it, please get it. It will be posted with the YouTube video when that gets posted. I'm
Super.
going to go over human guide because that is how we can help people with a visual impairment to get around. I will also go over some tips and tricks on event sites and things of that nature, and then we'll definitely save some time for questions and answers at the end of the class. Uh, First of all, with this being a DEIB conversation, it's very, very important to me that people remember people first. I am not a blind person. I am a person with a visual impairment because I am a person first, foremost, and always, as is anybody else attending an event and looking to come play with us in the SCA. And always keep that in mind. Each person is going to need different things. I have gone through different steps with visual impairment. I lost my right eye when I was about 25, and then I lost my left eye for good when I was roughly 30 years old. So during that, there were many steps along the way of, you know, different amounts of vision to where now I see some light, but that's about it. The easiest way, at least one of the ways, not the easiest, but one of the ways that we can really help somebody that's coming to an event, whether it be the first time or just the next time with a visual impairment, is called human guide. First thing you want to do is when they make themselves aware to you or make it aware to you that they have visual impairment, talk to them. See what their needs are. Do they need somebody to show them around site? Do they need to know where very important locations such as bathrooms, showers, camping are? Do they need you to have somebody take them to those places? The next thing is finding out, do they have other guides of mobility, such as a leader dog or guide dog or a white cane? Those are mobility tools, and a human guide is also a mobility tool. Um, if you're going to guide somebody, first ask them, can I guide you? If they say yes, what you'll want to do is take the back of your hand, go down their arm to the back of their hand. They will then trace your arm up and not grab, but just lightly cup above the elbow. They're not going to hold on tight to you because if you happen to trip because you're human, just like they don't want to go down with you. As you begin to travel, at that point, you are responsible for them. They will be about a step behind you, maybe two. You want to discuss what's coming up, not just the things you're looking for, such as, again, bathrooms, camping. Maybe they're looking for somebody specific. Maybe there's a household that they're a part of. But also the things that are coming up, like an up curb, a down curb, a door, a tree, anything and everything that could get in the way of the movement that they are doing so that they don't trip and fall, so that they don't run into something and bonk their head. If you're indoors and you're approaching a door, you want to guide them to the door, tell them you're going to stop at a door, and then you want to tell them which side the hinge is on and which way the door opens, whether it be in towards you or out away from you. The person with the visual or the visual impairment needs to be on the side of the hinges, and then you will then open the door slightly so that they can find the door, and then they will adjust themselves to hold the door open and step through, and then you will step through and then take your place to continue guiding them. Things like that are really important because if they have zero vision like I do, if you try to open the door for me, you're no longer looking around for what else is to come, if there's people in the way, things of that nature. And that's really what I need you to do. Um, if they have a dog that is a certified leader dog or guide dog, the dog will have a harness. And typically, unless they are extremely right-handed, they will hold the harness in their left hand. If they are using you as a human guide, they will drop the harness handle and just hold the leash for the dog. And that tells the dog that he's no longer the one in control of the path that you're walking. That puts you in complete control. If they're uncomfortable using human guide, or you're uncomfortable with people touching you, then another system is you can use the follow command, which means you will walk in front of the guide dog team or the person with the cane. If you're in front of a guide dog, you can snap or clap your hands or tap yourself on the hip to gain the dog's attention and say follow. And they will follow you probably 4 to 5 steps back. And as you're walking, just act like you're doing the human guide where you are discussing what is coming up, whether again it be a curb, a crossing, a building, camp, things of that nature. Those are all like major key points because just getting from point A to point B is difficult enough. The next thing, if you're running an event and you know there's going to be potential for people with visual impairment, if you're using a site that you've used several times before or that you've explored and you can get an overhead map made, do it. Because then what you can do is take that overhead map and trace it out with puff paint for any key locations like, again, where camping is, where the bathrooms are, where the shower house is, where court will be held, things of that nature. Because if it is a camping event, or even if it's not, that map has tactile function with the puff paint. And so if in the camping area you put a big triangle like a wedge tent, that tells them that's where camping is. And then if you up the road, you put like small squares and tell them that's the key, that's where the bathrooms are. Things like that allow them to have more independence and also make it so that it's not your job the whole event to make sure this person doesn't fall off the face of the planet. Laminate the piece of paper once you've got the overhead map drawn or printed out, and then use the puff paint to make your key, and then explain the key you've made to the person. Also talk it over with them because in the future, they may have some better ideas on what may be more helpful. Next, if they are camping by themselves and they are brand new, or even if they're not brand new, you might make sure that you try to find somebody that they know. And if there's nobody they know, find some people that you know and trust to be nearby. Just good, gentle people. It's not their job to look after this person. This person is independent. They probably will be able to get around just fine. But it helps to have people. Because while at some sites we have sidewalks and roads and dirt paths, which are key in blind mobility, if I'm just walking across a grassy field, it's literally like being in space for an astronaut. There is no up, there's no down, there's no left and right. I'm just in a big open field and I don't know what's ahead of me, behind me, to my left, to my right. If you can put them in an area and guide them to an area where there is a road and they can camp closer to beside the road, even if you have to make accommodations for that to happen, do it. That cane will find the road. That dog will find the road. And then they will follow that road. But if they have to be in the middle of the grass, then just try to make sure that they've got open pathways to the important areas that they're going to need to get to. Something I found at Gulf Wars last year is I camped in the early period living area where there are very nice alleyways between groups of tents, and the porta-johns were probably, I don't know, 100 feet, 150 feet from my tent. The problem with over there, though, is everybody had a wall tent. And my guide dog's great, but every wall tent looks exactly the same to a dog. And so we would get to the bathroom, no problem, because he's targeted to them. But the way back, there were a couple mornings at like 5 o'clock in the morning where I'm like looking for something to tell me which wall tent's mine. And that was a challenge. So what we did is we put a stake in the ground and we put a rope that went all the way to the bathroom with me. And I dropped on the ground, used the bathroom, came back out, picked it up, and I followed it all the way back home. Little tricks and tips like that are huge because, again, you're giving them their independence and their ability to enjoy the event. So we've talked about how to get around a little bit, and we'll definitely do some questions and answers at the end. Now, what are things that visually impaired people can do in the SCA? With some consideration, working with the right people, there's nothing that they cannot do. Obviously, if they are getting into fighting, you're going to want to talk over with your local marshals first, making sure that they are comfortable with helping this person get into this activity. Um, you know, it's never a disgrace for somebody to say, I'm not comfortable fighting you. They keep their honor when they leave the field, and so do you. And don't let anybody tell you differently. But beyond that, things with high tactile function, high touch, such as rapier combat, is great. I love rapier combat. I had just started it when I went blind. I took a couple years off, and I've gone back to it. I truly enjoy it. My wife and I both do English country dance, spatial reasoning. People with vision disabilities have a good idea of their space around them. And so if you're willing to sit there and hold their hand or know somebody that is a really good dancer that they can get comfortable with and teach them the moves, they can dance as well as anybody. There's literally nothing they cannot do as long as considerations are made and there's safety. I myself, I don't do archery. It's not that I can't, but I feel a lot of consciousness of making other people chase my arrows down when I miss the target by a huge spot. It's just not something I'm willing to do to somebody else. I have thrown axes though, and it's great fun. I enjoy it a lot. Um, I'm a certified chef. I enjoy cooking. So I still run taverns and feasts. Uh, there's just nothing I can't do. We just have to figure out how. And that's kind of what this whole DEIB track is about. Let's figure out how to do things for this person instead of telling them that they're limited by something. The final piece of guidance I'll give before I open up the questions and answers, when you're trying to direct somebody, think of it as a clock. They are at the center of the clock. Straight in front of them is 12 o'clock. Straight behind them is 6 o'clock. To their right, 3 o'clock. To their left, 9 o'clock. So if the crown is coming at their 11 o'clock, say, hey, the crown's coming, bow to your 11 o'clock. They will know to do that. That's orientation and mobility. They will know where to go. Instead of just saying, hey, bow, because they don't know where they're bowing. And I have, thankfully they were a friend of mine, bowed and hit the king in the shoulder with my head. It has happened, and it will probably happen again. So everything you do, always think of the clock piece. Um, Also, when you're describing things, take in consideration of what you know about what they can and cannot see and what they have and have not seen. Telling somebody who's never seen red and yellow that there's a banner in front of them that's red and yellow doesn't have a lot of value to them. It may be the prettiest banner you've ever seen. And you can tell them there's a really pretty banner of us ahead of us, but that doesn't hold any specific value to them. But if you can tell them there's a Viking wedge tent in front of us, and what makes it different than a normal wedge tent is it's got the 2x4s that go up the front and cross with a ridge pole that go between two sets of those poles, and then stakes around the edge. They can touch that, they can feel that, and they can feel the difference. That makes it cool. That's what makes it interesting to us. So, we'll open up for questions and answers. Please throw them in the chat, and I'll have our dear moderator read them off if you have any.
Okay, two questions from Valorano. One is, how would you do A&S? And the second one is, do you use audiobooks?
So, arts and sciences.
And then Coors also has another question. Coors also has another question when you're ready. So
No,
we got
yeah,
two
go
of
ahead.
them.
Why
Two
don't we
first
go
and then
ahead?
third.
Yeah, why don't we do all three and I'll just knock them out.
Okay. Coors' question is, speaking as a leg amputee, I don't know anyone for who there's nothing I can't do. We just have to figure out how isn't true. So okay, there's a lot of double negatives in there, course, but I think what you're saying is that it's a pretty universal agreement among the folks that you know, including yourself as a leg amputee, who believe that you can do anything. It's just a matter of how, and finding ways to sort of fill in the gaps.
Exactly.
Make it happen.
Exactly.
That's really
So,
cool.
as for the questions, arts and sciences, absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, I can use a knife. I don't do this, but if I were so inclined, I could learn to sew. Um, I did do a little bit of it when I was making my first garb, and it was atrocious. And so now I cook for people, and they sew for me. But that was that way when I could see too. Uh, I have made my knight has a squire whose squire belt he and I may have lost when we took it to war with us, so he could come with us. And my grand knight said, "Well, you lost the belt. Get him another one." I said, "Oh, I already bought him one." He said, "No, no, you have to make it because that makes it a story." So I spent a 3-day weekend of a demo on an ankle loom, learning how to use it and making my big brother's squire belt. Um, I've done leather working. I still do armoring. All the armor I wear, I purchased some of it, but like lacing lamellar, totally done it. Enjoy it. In fact, it's rather therapeutic. Um, Plenty of other arts and sciences too, but fiber arts are definitely a big one. Obviously, I don't know that I would get into doing like beading and blowing glass. I'm not saying that people can't, but I wouldn't personally. And then audiobooks, yes, I do them all the time, historical and otherwise. Long trips in this, yeah, right? A lot of driving. Audiobooks are great. And as the token person in a car full of people who can't drive, I oftentimes find myself being the blind navigator and also being the person that keeps everybody awake while they're driving. So audiobooks are major, major bonus.
Mm. All right. Valorano has another question. Which is your favorite or most valuable sense to use if you cannot use sight?
It's You have to use all of them. I'll take it
Mm.
out of, well, I'll keep it in the SCA, or I'll try to. if I'm walking on a site where at Battlemore in the Outlands, they used to have it on Mount Princeton, and at the very top, there's a campsite up there that we used to rent out called Cottonwood Springs or Cottonwood Farms. I can't remember off the top of my head. But there was a carriage, a horse-drawn carriage, that the site owners ran the entire event from parking and back through the camping in a big route, which was lovely. But that also means that there's horses coming down the road where I'm trying to walk with a guide dog. That can be interesting because those are big animals. And it's not a usual thing for my large Labrador to see something that's much, much, much bigger than he is. So I wasn't sure how he'd react. So at that point, I'm using my ears to hear the horses coming and the carriage wheels coming, or cars coming down the road, dropping off stuff, picking up people, dropping off people, but also scent. If I'm camping by myself, because sometimes my wife doesn't travel with me, I try to camp with my household, but that doesn't always happen. So I'll park myself, close to where food might be being prepared. If there's an inn, I will definitely be smelling, making sure I'm getting closer because I can smell coffee from about 200 yards away if I really put my mind to it. Um, and then tactile function is a lot. Using a cane, using a guide dog, it's all touch, it's all feeling. Also, walking, the bottom of your feet, whether you're on pavement, rocks, grass, dirt, it all has a certain feel to your feet. So all of those are pretty big. Hearing, sense of smell, sense of taste, and also touch.
These are really incredible, Otter. Um, I want to ask you to um, help me broaden my understanding.
Hmm.
Um, I completely agree that you can do anything if you set your mind to it. And right now, I'm having trouble imagining how it could work for you to do something like heavy fighting and even fencing. I do a little fencing, and I know that there's a lot of touch involved where you've got the blades touching, and there's, I don't know, maybe grunting going on the other side of the person. But I'm trying to imagine how you can do that. Would you be able to, tell me a little bit about what that's like and how you can accomplish it? Because you know better than me.
Yes, absolutely. So it's the same for armored and rapier. I mean, there are some subtle differences, but it's very similar. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I don't fight in melees. I will not do it because the friend that
Ah,
reauthorized me, a dear friend of
yeah.
mine, was part of my reauthorization, and he made me promise because a long time ago, when he didn't have his AOA, and he's now got his GOA in fighting, but I had the AOA, and he saw me on this basically man at arms tournament that's a big um, warlord tournament. And at the end, all the AOA and above line up on one side, and then all the men at arms sign up on the other side, the new fighters, right?
Mhm.
I took a 9 foot, I still had use of my left eye. I took a 9 foot spear shot to my right ear hole, and it picked me
Mm-mm.
up off the ground and slammed me down.
Mm.
And a friend of mine was marshaling. He came and picked me up, carried me off the field, and said, "You're done." And I said,
Mm.
"Yep, I do believe I am." Wasn't even a legal shot, but I never saw it coming. Um,
Mm.
so now I only do tournament fighting, which is not my favorite, but I'd still
Mm.
rather go out and play. So what I'll
Mm.
do is I'll go up to either beforehand or once we get onto the field, I'll say,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, or I won't say I'm sorry. I'm like, would you mind if I gauged our distance and held my sword out and touched you with my sword so I know where you're at? Because
Mhm.
that gives me a striking range, at least when lay on is called, right?
Mm.
Um, that gives me an idea, and I also let them do the same to me so that we are equal on equal footing.
Mhm.
I will also then say, can I trace it up to your shoulder so I know how tall they are? And then I'll
Mm.
also take it and make sure that it's up on their head so I know exactly how tall their helm is, right? Those are all
Mm.
very valuable sets of information.
Mm.
Then at that point, I'll turn towards the person and say, "Are you good?" And they'll say yes. And then I'll take my stance. I'll wait for the
Mhm.
marshal to call lay on or the other fighter if it's at practice. I always let them call lay on. That way I'm not taking an advantage over them
Mhm.
in any way. And then at that
Mhm.
point, I know enough about fighting from before,
Mm.
but it's still teaching the same way.
Mm.
For every shot I throw, there's an equal block involved. If you ever watched anybody do the Okinawan hand drum technique, every time
I
my
have
left
no
hand,
idea what that is.
it's from a
No
movie.
idea.
Um,
Oh, okay.
but basically, a pretty well-known one. We'll talk about it later. Um,
Mhm.
but basically, for every time my arm extends out to strike, I'm blocking an area with my left hand, whether I be doing two stick or a shield. If
Mm.
I'm doing a great sword or a bastard sword, it's the same thing. The blocks are still where the blocks go. Now, if somebody's going to figure out my rhythm and they can take advantage of that, and sure, go for it.
Mm.
But the shots are in the same place they've always been. I know where their
Mm.
head is, I know where their legs are, I know where their chest is. Now, if they move off to the side, they can do
Mm.
that, and that's just their choice.
Mm.
When I'm fighting rapier, it actually bothers me. A lot of people think it's only fair if we do what we call sticky sword, where both swords are touching at all times.
Mm.
That takes away an advantage of mine, though, because I'm pretty quick,
Mm.
and that gives them the same tactile function that I'm using, but they still have their eyes and I don't.
Mm.
So what I'll do is I'll knock their sword out of the way as quick as I can, or throw a big clearing
Mm.
shot to get them to stop doing that. And then I
Mm.
just throw until they either get me or I get them.
Ah, okay.
And
That makes
that's,
sense. I was trying to think of how would you know that a shot is coming if they swing and you can't see it and you can't feel it and maybe you can hear it a little,
you
but I'm
can,
wondering, like, how do you block?
well, you can hear armor, and it's the style of blocking I do. I do a lot of two stick now, which I never did before. I don't use a shield
Oh,
because
oh,
basically my shield needs to be offensive too, because as soon as I make contact,
yeah,
there's a shot there somewhere.
yeah,
I just have to have it cocked, ready to go.
yeah.
So as I'm throwing, I throw, like if I'm throwing right-handed, I'm ambidextrous, but if I'm throwing right-handed at their head, it immediately goes back over my right shoulder. That will protect the right side of my head, which is the open shot that somebody would normally throw after I throw that shot. And then I'm using
Oh,
my left hand to strike at their stomach, and then we're rotating
yeah.
back and forth like a piston.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense.
And
Wow,
with
okay.
rapier,
I'm
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm getting it. I'm
And
getting it. I'm learning
yeah,
here, and it's
yeah.
really helping me a lot.
And then with rapier
Yeah.
too, in Callantyr, I can fight heavier rapier and fence, so to speak. Then Callantyr, we do cut and thrust, which means
Mhm.
I can not only do fencing, which fortunately in my barony we have one of the better HEMA fighters, historical European martial arts fighters in the United
Mhm.
States, and he's one of the people
Mm.
training me. So he's
Nice.
taught me how to fence, which I never knew because when I did it before I lost my vision, I fought like an armored
Mhm.
combatant.
Oh, wow.
Because you can still do uh, progressive cuts and percussive
Yeah.
cuts because it's cut and thrust. You can
Yeah.
still do that, so it still works.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. This is really helpful. I'm sure that I would learn more by actually, like, watching you do it and seeing how you do it. It's just amazing to me how, uh, I something that I just thought wasn't possible, you make possible. You figure out ways to do it.
And I'll be ultimately honest with you. I mean, there
Mhm.
are times I beat people, and it happens. And a friend
Mhm.
of mine that's been in a very long time told me a secret. And this got
Mhm.
me over the hump where I wasn't going to do it because I was really discouraged one day. And he said, here's the thing. If I beat you 1,000 times, Each time I
Mhm.
beat you, I lose 1,000 cool points because I'm just beating up on somebody with a vision disability.
Mhm.
If you get me one time, you're like the coolest guy walking the earth.
Yeah.
And he said, and he tapped me
Yeah.
on the shoulder and he said, remember, we don't do this. I mean, glory has its own way, but we do this because it's fun.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's good. This is really helpful, Otter. I love it. Thank you.
Sure thing. Glad to do it.
Can I dig in a little further and ask, have you run into awkward social issues where people are, they don't want to fight you, or they're saying, that's ridiculous. Why would I fight somebody with a vision impairment? Um,
I
I
have
mean, do
had,
you run into that?
it's not often. And part of this is
Mhm.
where I live now, uh, because different parts of the
Mm.
world react differently. In my own kingdom,
Mhm.
people remember me from long before I was blind, and they know me.
Mm, mm,
And I've had a
mm,
friend say, I refuse to fight you. And that's where that
mm,
whole line about, you know what, he didn't lose his honor that
mm,
day, neither did I. Because if he's not
mhm,
comfortable, I'm not going to
mm,
put, it's not his responsibility to make sure I
mm.
have fun.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I do run into, outside of combat, though, I do run into, can he do that?
Mm,
And I am one of those people that I never thought I would do this when I took my Squire belt,
mhm,
but I actually have a Squire belt and a Protege belt.
mhm,
And I don't ask for a lot of permission to go do things. I'm grown,
mm,
but
mhm,
I do have two advocates that will advocate for me and believe in
mm,
what I can
mhm,
do. And so I let them
mhm,
know what I'm up to when I'm up to mischief, such as
mm.
helping with the Known World Shadowlane Symposium. And then if somebody goes up to them and says, can Otter do that? Like, I'm running
Mhm.
Crown Tournament next November. Can he still do that? And my knight always says, if you don't think he can do it, you don't know Otter. Because I'm going
Yeah.
to figure out a way.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. That is so cool. All right, Otter, one more question here from Valeriano. How would you coordinate colors or patterns when making ANS items or putting together an outfit? Do you rely on other trusted people to tell you what color or pattern an item is so it coordinates?
so
Yeah.
when it's coming to pattern, that's exactly what it is. It's a pattern. If you set me up with a loom with cards on it, and we're telling me to card weave, and you say, okay, you pull the shuttle through, then you turn the second one from the left one time, and then the second one from the right two times back towards you, and then you
Mm,
put the shuttle through, and then you give me another set of directions. It's a pattern.
mm,
So my hands know patterning. I can do
mm,
that.
mm,
As far as like colors and things like that, fortunately, I was able to see for most of my life to this point. So
mm,
I have an idea,
mm,
and then I do depend on other people to be kind and tell me the truth.
mm,
However, that said, I do have a
mm,
friend in Valeriano who is asking the question, knows this
mm,
person, who is colorblind.
mm.
And they used to wear these bright orange and lime green fighter pants.
Mm,
To
I
them, it
love
was
it.
just to them it was just gray, and they didn't know for forever. Like nobody told them because somebody made up some pants and they needed some pants.
Well, I would celebrate bright orange and green because I like bright colors like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, somebody makes me garb, I'll wear it. You know, outside of the Lance Connect thing, that's not me. Other people can love that.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay. Well, you're really helping me understand a lot about how to keep doing things with the vision impairment. You've shown me how screen readers can work and how I can do certain things to make it a little easier on you, and you only need a couple of little tweaks to any process I have to just help you along. And lots of people have you know, just little things that they could use when we're running an event that would help them to participate better. And just hearing how you make things possible is really helping me understand how to make things a little easier when I'm running things.
Well,
Um,
and two, I think a really big part of it too is, you know, Father Time is undefeated.
mm-hmm.
Gonna win. We're all gonna get old. It's gonna happen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that our fun has to end. It just has to mean how can we be an asset to ourselves and to the thing that we do that we love.
Yeah.
Figuring it out. That's what it's all about. Helping others figure it out. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.